New information regarding King Von's last moments was just disclosed by a physician, and it was unexpected. When Van was shot outside that bar, everyone assumed his narrative was over. But it turns out that there was total turmoil at the hospital. And that was only the beginning. Even more bizarre is what followed. Let's begin. Startling information on King Von's last moments in the hospital. One of Chicago's fiercest drill rappers, King Von, caught deadly shells outside Atlanta's Monaco Hookah Lounge early on November 6, 2020, sending the rap scene into a tailspin. The crazy truth of his last hospital minutes, however, is unknown to his loved ones. A story so bizarre that it sounds more like an urban legend than factual medical information. The shootout that took Von to the hospital was captured by the cameras outside, but what transpired behind them? The entire hip-hop community was surprised when Bo spilled some tea, but the hospital doors remained locked. A Reddit topic titled Buo explains how King Von died during surgery was posted on March 18, 2025, with more than 400 upvotes and 300 comments from admirers who were in shock. This discovery went viral. According to Bo, Van's last moments were quite extraordinary. Van remained loyal to his oblak instincts, which caused him to be dreaded throughout Chicago, despite the surgeon's best efforts to save him. Van miraculously recovered consciousness and, using only adrenaline and street instinct, literally lifted himself off the surgery table. According to a March 2025 world-famous hip-hop post. Von allegedly threw hands with medical officials, insisting that his body remain in survival mode despite having devastating wounds, in what physicians described as an unparalleled response to trauma. Bo claims that Von died of hypovolemic shock as a result of this last act of resistance. The trauma of the gunshot and the tremendous stress of jumping off the table were too much for his body to take. After that, he fell into shock and died. I thus assumed that he would have survived if he had simply When fans heard this, they naturally went nuts, asking how Van could still have the power to perform such a maneuver. I've never heard anything so vain. He died the way he lived. An actual soldier. This is exactly how Van would go out, searching for his pole until the very end. If you are familiar with his songs, from the operating table, Bro was prepared to slide on his ops. He was the most dreaded person in Chicago because of this. In 2025, this story became viral on social media, garnering thousands of shares and opinions. This last phase of Van's life was the subject of endless discussion among fans. You have to know who King Von was in order to truly get why this narrative resonated so strongly with fans. Von, whose real name was Devin Bennett, was no ordinary rapper. He was regarded by many as one of the most dreaded drill scene figures in Chicago, with a reputation that went back outside of his music. Von established a formidable street presence in O'Block before even spitting a bar under Lil Durk's F label. It was more than simply art when he told his story honestly in songs like Crazy Story and Took Her to the Rio. Many people think that these were true accounts of his life on the perilous streets of Chicago. Van was the epitome of that unadulterated Chicago spirit. His genuine life was his music, not a hat. His fans find great resonance in this account of his last moments because of this. It is the ideal representation of a man who never gave up and who was always prepared for everything. Von maintained the same level of passion in real life as he did in his music, according to those who knew him well. In the King Von legend, his alleged last moments fighting medical officials and looking for his tool while his vital signs were collapsing have solidified his reputation, uncompromising all the way to the finish. But in the end, these deeds cost him his life. This story is the ultimate testament to Van's character, a guy who lived and died by his code for his devoted followers. Fans have posted countless tributes to Van's last stand on TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. The remarks are truthful. In an attempt to find his gun, Van actually leaped off the operation table. "I've heard the most gangsta ever. Goodbye, Vaughn." They are no longer able to say that slide for Van forever. The operations were afraid of him because of this, even passing away. He was prepared to explode. Actual demon hours. Even bars by other musicians honoring Van's iconic last moments have been influenced by this tale. Several drills have made reference to getting off the operating table and looking for protection during surgery. Songs since the story first surfaced, securing this story's place in hip-hop history. Experts in medicine may wonder if a patient could truly recover from surgery, or if they would be physically capable of defending themselves after being shot several times. But Vaughn's purported last moments are the ultimate evidence of his sincerity in drill culture, where reputations are based on street cred and never displaying vulnerability. This narrative is frequently mentioned in Oblak and nationwide memorials to King Von. Symbolic firearms, which stand in for the weapon Vaughn allegedly sought in his last moments, are left as presents by fans. More memorable than any of Vaughn's record covers or music videos is the picture of him getting up from the surgical table. This, according to some supporters, is the reason his killer was not charged. They were aware of Vaughn's demonic nature. He posed a threat, even in death. Gunshots did not kill Van. He passed away because he was too genuine for this planet. The most difficult thing I've ever heard is about searching for his pole during surgery. This is the kind of tale that will be told about Vaughn in a century. An actual legend. Whether or not you accept Bo's story, there is no denying its influence on King Va's legacy. For his admirers, it's the ideal conclusion to the tale of a man who grew up surrounded by firearms and eventually lost his life in pursuit of one. It becomes street mythology and transcends ordinary celebrity death stories. Ultimately, the sad events that transpired in that hospital room have gone beyond King Von. It is a reflection of his life and his legacy. Years after his death, his legacy is still felt in street culture and drill music. This is more than just another story for Von fans, concerning a rapper that passed away too soon. It's the last chapter of a real person who lived authentically to the end of his life. After a feud with Quando Rondo, King Von passed away. We must thus dissect how this lethal rivalry came to be. Long before their tragic meeting in Atlanta, King Von and Quando Rondo's feud began to simmer. King Von's death was caused by F against Quando Rondo. We must examine the intricate network of street alliances and label politics in the modern rap game in order to fully comprehend this predicament. In 2018, King Von, whose real name is Devin Bennett, joined Lil Durk's exclusive family label after emerging from Chicago's infamous O Block as his protege. Around the same time, Quando Rondo, whose real name is Taquan Bowman, represented Savannah, Georgia, and played with the NBA YoungBoys' Never Broke Again team. It was more than just record deals. Fan NBA were rival groups in hip-hop, with animosity escalating over years between their founders, NBA YoungBoy and Lil Durk. These issues were passed down to their artists, who became embroiled in a quiet conflict that few people truly comprehended. The first overt indication of Von and Quando's direct animosity surfaced in 2018 or 2019, when King Von questioned NBA YoungBoy's street cred on Instagram Live, asking, "What is YoungBoy talking about in this song? He's saying all these ridiculous things that have nothing to do with his life. I'm speaking to him now, Cap, in drill's overly sensitive world." This might seem like a typical rap feud, but disrespect like that rarely goes unpunished. The terrible aspect of this situation is that King Von appeared to minimize the escalating fight in an interview just before he passed himself, stating, There ain't no beef or real smoke unless somebody gets touched. His remarks would turn out to be uncanny prophecies, hinting at the carnage to come on. The date of November 6, 2020 would irrevocably alter the course of many people's lives and professions. Security cameras captured an unanticipated confrontation between two entourages that turned violent at around 4 a.m. outside the Monaco Hookah Lounge in downtown Atlanta. King Von and his team were departing the location when they noticed Quando Rondo and his team in the parking lot, according to several verified reports and the security tape that subsequently went viral online. Although there is ongoing discussion on what transpired next, it is evident from the video that Von approached Quando's group before engaging in physical combat. Everything escalated in a matter of seconds. Someone, later identified as Timothy Lulu, was throwing fists in front of them, when Rando's close friend Tim Leaks came out from behind an SUV and began firing. King. Firing. King. In this first exchange, Von was hit several times. Von and another Chicago native, Mark Blakely, were among the 6 individuals shot and 3 killed in the violent affair. The fact that both on-duty and off-duty Atlanta police officers were in the area when it occurred added to the complexity of the case. Although official comments from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation indicated that King Von was struck during the initial civilian gunfight and not by police shots, these officers did intervene and return fire. After the incident, Von was driven in a private vehicle to a hospital where he would later pass away from his wounds. One of drill music's most talented storytellers had his personal tale cut short at the age of just 26. Following the well-publicized incident, legal action was swiftly initiated. One day after the incident, on November 7, 2020, Timothy Leaks was taken into custody and accused of felony murder in relation to King Von's passing. After suffering injuries during the altercation, Leaks was arrested while receiving treatment at Grady Hospital. After Leaks was arrested, the Atlanta Police Department believed they had conclusive proof of his guilt in the shooting death and concluded the murder investigation. But in the ensuing months and years, the legal case would take a number of surprising turns. Leaks' attorneys successfully petitioned the Superior Court, and on March 27, 2021, he was granted a $100,000 bond, even though murder is normally not a bondable offense in Georgia. This contentious choice infuriated King Von's supporters and colleagues right away. On social media, fellow Chicago rapper Lil Ree foreshadowed revenge by saying, "We'll handle his situation very soon." 2 additional arrests were made as a result of the investigation. Johnny Harris was accused of having a firearm by a convicted criminal, as well as Kevin Jones, who is charged with aggravated assault. While the Atlanta Police Department concentrated on the civilian killings, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation continued to investigate the officer-involved shooting portions of the case. The most unexpected event occurred in August 2023 when Timothy Leaks' felony murder charges were dropped prior to a formal indictment. Noah Pines, his lawyer, confirmed this startling result to several media sites. Although the Fulton County District Attorney's Office never provided an official explanation for the dismissal, it would only serve to exacerbate a feud that was already getting out of hand due to social media, diss tracks, and an increase in physical violence. What had been simmering tension burst into open confrontation after Von's passing. It began with a war fought on social media and in music, and both sides acted swiftly to control the narrative surrounding the incident in Atlanta. 2 weeks after the deadly altercation, on November 20, 2020, Quando Rondo released End of Story, a song that addressed the altercation and advanced his self-defense thesis with phrases like, "Watch the video. That's the only proof. They shouldn't have violently stepped on me." Von was depicted by Wando as the one who started the altercation. Even the title of the song seemed provocative, as if Van's story was over. Wando remained true to his account. He stated in an interview with Angela, Ye in April 2021 that he was sleeping in a car at the time of the event and didn't even realize it was King Von until the following day, stressing, "I've never in my life talked to them, ever." Additionally, he refuted reports that he attempted to take Van's chain following the incident, calling them wholly untrue. In spite of these, despite his insistence on his innocence, Tone Rondo came under fire for what many perceived to be disrespectful behavior toward Van's memory. He allegedly humiliated King Von during a virtual performance on April 3, 2021, by reciting lines like "he got caught without his pole, and now that boy is gone. I'll piss on his grave." In addition, he purchased a costly diamond-encrusted watch for leaks, which DJ Academics posted on social media to demonstrate his unwavering support for the man suspected of murdering Von Lil Durk, King Von's close friend and mentor. Despite his more subdued and oblique reactions at first, he later became more explicit in his musical responses. The hostility between the groups continued to rise, especially involving NBA Youngboy and Lil Durk in what was turning into one of the most dangerous feuds in hip-hop. By 2022, King Von and Quando Rondo's personal feud had escalated into open conflict between their groups, with battle lines established between F and NBA Youngboy, the Never Broke Again group. NBA Youngboylies bring the hook in January 2022. With songs like this, Like That Squid Game, O Block Pack, and Get Rolled Up, that seemed to parody King Von's passing and his O Block neighborhood. Lil Durk responded to this seeming disregard for Van's legacy and Chicago heritage with his own song, Aha, in which he made direct mention of Van's passing with lyrics such as, "They've been acting like they really like that. Since my Brody died, it wasn't just wax, either." Both sides continue to be impacted by violence in the real world. Quando Rondo was the target of a gunshot in Blackshear, Georgia, on May 3, 2021, but he was not seriously hurt. When Quando was involved in another incident on August 19, 2022, in Los Angeles, where his cousin Servia Robinson, better known as Lil Pab, was shot and killed. The situation took a sharp turn for the worse. This shooting would turn out to be particularly important. According to reports, TF affiliates celebrated the occurrence with one of their associates, Brick Baby, implying that this was retaliation for King Von's passing and that they could no longer say slide for Von. The message became evident after Lil Pab's passing. The Von movement's fall, which had pushed Lil Durk's group to exact revenge for Von's death, might have found its target. When asked about the internet calls for retribution, Lil Durk made it apparent to DJ Academics that he couldn't hear the clamor. Only 4 years later did the world realize the significance of his remark. Nobody at the time realized that this episode would ultimately result in the most severe legal repercussions in this fatal feud, with ramifications that are still being felt today. Disaster for King Von's following a revenge expedition. The years following King Von's passing paved the way for a feud that would transcend typical rap rivalries. Tensions between Lil Durk's Only the Family, F, and NBA Youngboy's Never Broke again were already dangerously rising as fans lamented the death of the Chicago drill musician. Rap business feuds can have lethal repercussions that go beyond diss recordings and public stunts, as demonstrated by the real bloodshed that quickly followed the musical and social media shots. 6 months after King Von's passing, on May 3, 2021, Quando Rondo was shot in Blackshear, Georgia. Many interpreted this as possible F affiliate reprisal, even though he wasn't gravely injured. The issue worsened on August 19, 2022, when Quando was involved in another shooting, this time in Los Angeles, where his cousin, Servia Robinson, also known as Lil Pab, was slain, even though no direct connections were ever formally confirmed. Later on, this terrible incident will play a major role in the federal prosecution against Lil Durk. Prosecutors assert that it was a planned hit rather than an act of random violence. The most startling development in beef occurred in October 2024, some 4 years after King Von's passing. U.S. Marshals detained Lil Durk in Florida on federal charges in connection with an alleged murder for hire. Scheme against Quando Rondo. According to the prosecution, the plot killed Rondo's cousin, Lupe Han, in that August 2022 incident in Los Angeles. Prosecutors described the charge, which was filed in U.S. District Court in Los Angeles, as a carefully thought-out plot driven by retaliation for the death of King. Von Durk was charged with several serious offenses, including murder for hire and conspiracy to commit murder for pay, resulting in death. Using interstate facilities, committing murder for hire that results in death, and being charged with several weapons offenses, including using a machine gun in a violent crime that results in death. Federal prosecutors claim that Durk paid 5 associates Cavo London Grant, DeAndre Dontrell Wilson, Keith Jones, David Brian Lindsay, and Asa Houston to travel from Chicago to Los Angeles in order to carry out the hit, thereby financing and planning it. Financial records demonstrating payment cards tied to travel plans and incriminating correspondence, cautioning his associates against booking travel under his name or anything related were among the evidence provided. This action only implied attempts to conceal the relationship. The prosecution's case was further reinforced by location data that showed Durk was in the San Fernando Valley on the day of the operation. The most detrimental was perhaps Durk's purported attempt to Durk might be sentenced to the death penalty in addition to the statutory maximum of life in federal prison if found guilty. Due to the complexity of the case, which involved 20,000 pages of documentation and over 230 gigabytes of digital evidence, his trial, which was originally set for January 2025, was moved to October 14, 2025. In February 2025, Lil Pab's mother, Andrea Laquilla Robinson, filed a wrongful death lawsuit against Durk, his business manager, and another organization, further complicating the matter. Durk's legal team, however, has contested the evidence, claiming it is based on false information, such as song lyrics that the prosecution has used as evidence and YouTube videos posted by fan accounts. As Lil Durk's defense team contested the federal accusations. 2 important figures in this, people approach the worsening crisis in quite different ways. Quando Rondo announced his new song, Life Goes On Instagram 3 days after Durk's arrest, coupled with a mysterious message. We entered the music business to stay involved in street activities, not to achieve success. Families and communities rely on each of us. It's time to give up that way of life. We've already suffered a great deal. And I firmly believe that I can forgive everyone with whom I have had a falling out in the past. I pray for everyone and spread positivity to everyone, he joked. Despite not specifically mentioning Lil Durk, many people interpreted Rando's timing and content as a reaction to Durk's arrest and possibly an effort to put a stop to the feud. Following the death of his cousin and surviving several suicide attempts, Rondo's letter indicated a wish for peace and reconciliation. The aggressive rhetoric that had permeated the beef for years was very different. This case presents significant issues for the music industry regarding the connection between actual violence and artistic expression. Artists may become caught up in violent cycles that worsen when fans view lyrics about retribution as promises that must be fulfilled, and when social media magnifies these expectations. They believe they can't get away without looking untrustworthy. This case highlights the growing use of song lyrics as evidence in criminal cases, which disproportionately affects hip-hop artists and raises issues about racial bias in the legal system. According to legal professors and criminal justice advocates, This ongoing discussion is exemplified by Durk's legal team's challenge to the prosecutor's use of his lyrics. Everyone related to this in the interim. The effects of beef have changed people's lives. At age 26, King Von's bright future came to an end. Wando, also known as Quando Rondo, lost his cousin and has been the victim of several assassination attempts. One of the biggest names in hip-hop, Lil Durk, might now be sentenced to life in jail. Additionally, the continued violence has resulted in the arrest, injury, or death of innumerable associates on both sides. The fact that this plot is still developing with no obvious conclusion in sight is arguably the most concerning aspect. The legal actions against Durk guarantee that the fight will be in the public eye for years to come, possibly inciting additional violence and vengeance from devoted supporters on both sides, despite Quando Rondo's seeming call for peace. Please click on the card that appears on your screen if you thought this investigation was helpful and would like to see more stuff like this.